This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half.
Well, hello, Deborah Johnson here. So excited to be back with you today again for the Women at Halftime podcast. I really love producing some of these shows, actually all of these shows I have. Today is no exception. How joy and happiness foster longevity. And as I'm producing this and recording this for you, this afternoon, I will be playing at the happiest place on earth. I've been a pianist and musician there under contract as an independent contractor. That's what I was trying to get out for a number of years, probably 20, 25 years, 25, I think at least. Great place. I love working there. I only do that part-time or sub-in doing that, but it's such a wonderful place to go as something totally different than what I'm doing. And they do profess happiest place on earth, but we're going to talk about a little bit of differences there between true joy and happiness today. So hang on for that. Hang tight. To remind you a couple things, the summit, the Journey to Hero Mountain, the book is here and you can still order it in time for holidays. It's a great book, gift book. So check out the reviews on that. HeroMountainSummit.com. If you go there, you can find the book, but also the program that I opened it up only twice a year to individuals. And you can apply Hero Mountain Summit. It is .com. It's a 5-month virtual program. Now I've put it all virtual, of course, but you get to interact with me directly. I also have a partner program that you can sign on to for small companies and organizations. So today, how joy and happiness foster longevity. Wow, is that really true? Now, to remind you, I write an article with every single episode. So you want to make sure you look at it because those terms, joy and happiness, they're thrown around more and more in our current society. And there's new books released on empowerment and happiness almost every day. But many of these books are all about what it means to be joyful with the power of ordinary things to create extraordinary happiness. But does it really create longevity? Well, I'll be answering that a little bit today. And there's even books on being a happy leader, such as the one from one of my colleagues just released, Being a Happy Leader. Now, the actual definitions of both joy and happiness, they're often intertwined. Joy brings a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. They are linked together. And both joy and happiness, they're directly linked to our emotions and life satisfaction. And in this show, in this episode, I'm going to go a little bit deeper than defining just the surface happiness, like the happiest place on earth, because true joy comes from within us. And I think of it as like a hot spring that bubbles up, just like a geyser from beneath the surface of the earth. If you've ever been to one of those geysers, you can picture that. And in this way, I think joy, I feel strongly that it's linked to your very soul. And as we all age, subjective well-being, it affects our health and our longevity. And subjective well-being, it refers to how you evaluate your own life, such as your life satisfaction, your feelings, your moods, and your emotions. And it can also include the emotions of optimism, of anger, and work satisfaction. Now, there's some studies, and you can see these documented in the article. There was a 5-year study of older people who said they felt pleased, thrilled, and content if they felt pleased, thrilled, and content on a typical day. They lived like 35 to 20% longer. They had that percentage of a lower death rate, which was very, very interesting. Of course, I did the math and I put it right to their lifespan of that 35 to 20 to 35% lower death rate. And that's fairly significant of just that feeling of optimism and contentment. And that happiness and to joy. And this research, it's quite encouraging in many ways, but as most know, there's no guarantees on extending anyone's lifespan. But it does encourage us to pay attention to our mindset and emotional well-being. And so today I'm going to cover 5 ways to help you develop more joy and happiness. And these include journaling, significant relationships, eating and exercise. You might not want to hear about that one, but it's true. Your spiritual life and getting outdoors. So, 5 ways here that will help you foster that joy and happiness to hopefully extend that 20% to a 35%. I mean, those are huge numbers. But something my dad said to me too, and I think this is why he was diagnosed some years ago as a fire captain. You know, they have gone into, when he was going into that field, they didn't have a lot of the protections that they do today as far as, you know, the oxygen and everything going in. And so you had all this smoke and inhalation. And he had been diagnosed with a precursor to cancer some years ago. So he changed his diet. He completely changed that around and lived a lot longer. Actually, we thought he was going to live to over 100. He just had that sort of optimism. But the thing that he said to me was, I'm not afraid of dying. I know where I'm going, but I really like living. I mean, that is true optimism. That is true joy. So as you develop that joy and happiness in your life, it can really have a significant influence on really the rest of your life and your joy and your happiness, and even extend. It has the power to do that. So our principle 1, develop a consistent practice of journaling. And why do I say this? Thankfulness and a grateful heart, they're an integral part of a healthy mindset, as it takes the focus off this self-focus, and it creates this outward focus. And that's what I love to do, even in these episodes. This is about you, for you. And if you start each day focusing on just one small thing that you're thankful for or grateful for, just this habit alone, it has that power to foster more joy and more happiness in your life. Now, I started this 90-day journaling challenge a number of years ago, and my husband challenged me to that because I had kind of put it aside for a while. Just writing a couple sentences a day. That practice has become an ingrained habit that's now fostered really increased feelings of thankfulness and gratefulness in my life, no matter what's happening around me. And I really encourage you to take up that challenge as well. It could really change your life. Number 2, develop significant relationships. People who need people. Remember that song? Are the luckiest people in the world. Wasn't really prepared to sing that today, but that was that song, 1964, by Barbara Streisand in the Broadway musical Funny Girl. And it had that memorable phrase, that people who need people, the luckiest people in the world. Well, that song became Streisand's first top 40 hit, and it soon became a recording favorite of other artists as well. And more than just a song in a musical, the lyrics carry that message to emphasize the importance of connection with each other. And it's a known fact that significant relationships and friendships are very, very beneficial as social interaction with encouragement. It helps keep the mind sharp, and it even extends lifespans. There are many studies out about that, and a growing amount of research that shows a higher risk of illness and death in people with low quantity and quality of social relationships. They're just lonely. Dr. Kilcal, who's an MD, he says, social isolation is a major risk factor for death from a variety of causes in both genders. And in fact, during COVID, with all the isolation, the impact of physical distancing and stay-at-home orders, they were directly associated with mental health challenges and even increased suicide rates. People need people. How joy and happiness foster that longevity. Do you know they almost dropped that song from the musical? Many musicals are written with many more songs that are actually included. One I really remember is My Fair Lady, 80 songs for My Fair Lady. And it's known as one of the most perfect musicals, and it was scaled down and to make it really, really tight. So that song almost didn't make it in the musical. But when Streisand starred in that the show that I was on My Fair Lady still, but when she starred in that show and sang that song, of course it became the song. And sometimes we don't know that, but it was that message and that emotion behind it, and that joy, that happiness, that feeling that you need each other stayed and became even more popular. So let's move on to number 3, journaling, healthy relationships. Healthy, I encourage. Developing healthy eating and exercise habits. Oh, you thought I wouldn't go there. As the body goes, so the mind goes. And this is my opinion, but it's backed up by many health professionals. Regular exercise, it prevents or it delays illness. It increases your energy levels, and it can also minimize chronic conditions. An exercise-induced mind boost and mood boost can be obtained by running, but also by many other sustained physical activities with walking and riding your bike and walking fast. Those are great exercises for you. There's a brain chemical, if you just do the research, it's called, I don't know if I can say this, endocannabinoids. It's in the article, which is the same chemical, I can say this one, mimicked by cannabis. It's the happy chemical. And stress areas of the brain are the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, and both are receptors for that endocannabinoids. That it did better that time, which in turn reduces stress and brings a state of contentment and optimism. So healthy nutritional habits work hand in hand with those exercises. And growing up, I had a friend's mom who consistently read and lectured about a book called Sugar is Poison. And she made sure we knew of that fact. And I'm sure the original book is no longer in print. I've actually kind of looked for it, but there have been many written since on that subject. And a feeling of optimism is nurtured with good eating habits where you maintain a metabolism that's consistent and steady. What sugar does, of course, which I love, is throw this off. More so for some than others, of course. But for anyone who's ever experienced those dips of mood and emotion, the knowledge of what good nutrition is, it should bring a feeling of joy and happiness. You just feel better. And so to help you, I do have a free goal setting sheet and nutritional timing sheets. Those are all in the article. Make sure you get those. The nutritional timing is very, very interesting. And that also could change your life. So let's move on. Number 4, enrich your spiritual life. Many put their spiritual life on hold until the point of time when it becomes necessary to answer this question: what's next? Now, this can come anytime, really, mid-career, halftime of life, or even the end of life. And I encourage you to think about this now and don't put it off. All you need to do is look around you to notice there's a power bigger than yourself. And that's empowering in many ways. The human hand, my hand here, it has 27 bones. If you're watching the video, you can see my hand right here. And if just one of those bones are damaged, it brings pain and suffering. We all know this. And the foot has 26 bones. Now, I wonder if my husband has an extra bone in his big toe because they are so long. I always joke about that. But the point is, the hands and feet, those bones, there's 53, did the math. 53 bones in just the hands and feet. Well, for fun, study the gut and explore how all those parts of your digestive system needs to work together. I mean, it's really, truly miraculous. And then spend some time reflecting and journaling on how all the parts of the body are put together. And I hope you realize there has to be a designer. Just as the pieces of a rich wristwatch, which I still wear, I really like it, or a computer, and I use a lot of them, they don't magically just assemble themselves. Your bones and your veins and your body part and your brain, they all need some sort of a designer, and they don't just randomly assemble. And you should definitely find joy, happiness, and contentment in the way that you were put together, no matter how you look, no matter what your abilities are. Spend some time journaling about that. You are wonderfully and creatively made. And I never want you to forget that. And that's what the summit is all about. The character that starts, I named her. Her beginning name as a muse was Not Good Enough. She was feeling not good enough. And you are good enough. And you need to realize the way that you were truly made and put together, all of the parts of your body, of your whole being that are put together just miraculously and uniquely. And you do a little bit of people watching, and sure, you can see some resemblance, but you were beautifully and wonderfully made, unique, everybody unique. And that's what I love people to find out about themselves, your uniqueness. So as we look a little bit about this joy and happiness, I'm going to go on to one more little point. Get outdoors. And I love this one. So one of my favorite ways to reflect and take a break is just to get outdoors. Now, it can take the place for me on the back of our property where I water or trim fruit trees, or when I'm walking our little dog, Amelia. I started doing that a lot more during COVID. And it's hard not to marvel at the majesty when we're away of a redwood tree or the shadows falling on the crevices of a mountain. It's beautiful. Being outdoors, it gets us away from our computers and little world. And it even can help us get away from our phones if we let it. Most areas, they have local parks. So even if you have no trees to water or branches to trim like I do, which I love, it's a total break for me, a total diversion, but you can find a place to walk. One of our family members recently came back from a trip to South Africa, where he experienced visiting a small village. And the homes were but huts, 8 by 10 feet, with mattress springs made of elephant dung and coverings of a thin mattress for sleeping. And even their goats slept indoors, away from the night predators. But the one thing that stood out to him, the people were extremely happy and content. Their lives were simple, hauling their water out of a well in buckets and spending most of their time on just the simple basics of life. And they lived off the land, and they realized how abundant it was for their basic needs. So they became thankful, and they became full of that joy and of that happiness. Now, if they don't have water, that's a problem. But they did. So they spend every day just being grateful for what they have. And I think that's such a good habit of life. And when we get outdoors, we can really see just the beauty that there is, everything that we have been provided, and just it's there for us. So with all of this, we live here, we live with abundance. And most who live in, compared to that, especially, most who live here in the United States, where I'm producing this, of course, we have so much more than what's really needed. I definitely do. And I include myself in this category. And we discover how true this is toward the last segment of our lives as we work hard to purge some of those belongings that will be mostly given or thrown away after we graduate to our next destination. If you have ushered a parent or someone else and cleaned out a house, you see, it's just going to be all thrown or given away. And you can create more joy and happiness in your life as you take the time to nurture it with a simplicity and a few lifestyle steps that will empower and enrich your days, which may even lengthen them. So whether you pick up journaling, a more regular exercise habit, or eating habit, meditation and reflection, outdoors or spiritually, there's a good chance that by doing so, you will foster a longer and a happier life. And that is really my wish for you. I want you to have that chance to live contented. Again, none of us know how long we have. And there's studies that say, oh, this can extend our life. And when you get toward the end, many people are just afraid of taking that next step. But those who are not as afraid have lived with peace with a lot of these principles I've talked about today, with that journaling, with meditating, getting to know who created you. There has to be a creator. When you look at things around it, you really have to evaluate that very logically, saying there has to be something that puts this together. It can't just randomly happen. And realizing that so many of your needs are taken care of. When you look at those, that little village, and they were happy with water and with their basics. They were able to sleep and have their animals and eat. Very, very happy. Thank you so much for joining me. And next week, we have a wonderful episode. Greg and I are on together. Oh, we're doing a great one next week. Oh, you are going to love this. Fitness for the new year from an athlete and from an artist. Guess who's the athlete? Greg's with me. And guess who's the artist? So we come from kind of a unique aspect, but we join together in a lot of the principles. And he has really influenced me. And I'm influencing him too as we journey through our years together. We've been together for a lot of years. And but he comes from a different mindset that he's had to adjust through the years as well. But how important that fitness and exercise is through, as we look at the new year's, things that you can sustain. So make sure you join us. You can always reach me at womenathalftime.com. You can get a hold of me at goalsforyourlife.com. Make sure you check out heromountainsummit.com and you go ahead and get that book, The Summit, Journey to Hero Mountain. It's just a wonderful little book, great gift book, wonderful gift book. So thank you again for joining me. This is always a pleasure. I love being able to present these episodes, these shows for you every week. And don't miss a single one. You can always look at the past episodes as well. Plenty to choose from now. We are I think we're about 130 strong now. So thanks so much again. Deborah Johnson signing off, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson signing off.